David's the executive director at Spring Mill, so.
I just listen to what she says.
And I'm the director of sales and marketing at Spring Mill, and we just thought we would come over and just really do something informal. We could talk to you about Spring Mill, what do we do, what are we all about, and then you guys we can ask us questions, and we can just kind of go back and forth. We can talk about our company, what we have to offer, why are we there, what do we do for the community, and such. So do you want to start, or do you need to? Okay.
Can you guys hear me, or would you prefer I use this? Okay. I think I have a voice that kind of carries anyway. So we are senior living. We are licensed by the state of Pennsylvania as a personal care home, okay? So it is not a nursing home. It is not a skilled nursing facility. We no longer have power back rehab there. So we are 100% personal care home, and we have a small neighborhood within the building that is specific for memory impairment, Alzheimer's, dementia, or anything that falls under that umbrella of dementia, if you will. So we serve a wide variety of residents in the area, in this community. Some residents are completely independent. They have their own cars. They come and go as they please. We have other residents on the other side of the spectrum who require full care. So, the range of services that we can provide is truly vast, okay? And just to clarify, we are not a clinical setting. Like I said, we are not a nursing home. It's an apartment building. So we rent apartments. That's what we do. Just in addition to that, we have additional services that what we call activities of daily living. It's a common term in our line of work, and what it's referring to is what all of us do for our own selves every day when we wake up, get dressed, take a shower, brush our teeth, all those things. Those are all called activities of daily living. So we calculate really if somebody needs assistance with any of those items. So there's dressing, grooming, bathing, incontinence needs if need be, dining needs, things of that nature, right? Things that we all do for ourselves now. Unfortunately, some of our residents have gotten to a point where they have a harder time performing those tasks, or they're physically unable to do so at all. And that's where we step in. But we offer, every service that you would require to live day to day. I actually say, we provide you everything to the point where if a resident didn't ever want to leave the building, they wouldn't have to, technically. We don't encourage that. We want the residents to get out, we want them to walk around, and we want them to jump in the pool and go swimming, so we want them to be active as possible, and that's what we encourage of all of our residents, because we've learned that the more and you guys probably all know this, especially those who have children, right? The more you do for somebody, the less likely they are to do it for themselves after a certain period of time. They kind of get into the habit of somebody performing that task for them. So that could be a detriment to some residents, and we don't want to do that. So our goal and our objective is that when we give care, we're continually encouraging the residents' participation in that care. Use it or lose it, right? It's kind of along that line. So we always encourage a resident to do for themselves what they can. But again, there's a wide range of residents and needs that we serve, in our community.
So, one thing that I find when I'm touring residents or families at Spring Mill, they're asking me, am I allowed to do this, Janine? Am I allowed to do this, Janine? You're allowed to do anything you want. There is none of your rights are taken away as a human being when you move to a senior living community. None of your rights. Actually, I think you have even more rights do you want alcohol in your apartment? Have alcohol in your apartment. Of course, we don't allow smoking within the community. That's something that we wouldn't want in the community. It's a smoke-free campus. But there's nothing that you cannot do. I don't care if your kids come in the middle of the night and they want to visit. We don't have visiting hours. I always tell families, this is your parents' home. Spring Mill is the residents that live there, that's their home. So whatever you would do when you go visit somebody's home is what you would do at Spring Mill. You come, you park, you walk right on in, you visit. Of course, we ask people to sign in, and there's some logistical things so that we know who's walking into our community, just like you'd want to know who's coming into your clubhouse here. But other than that, and people will just continue, well, what if this, this, or what if this, or what if this? Can I bring a picture of margaritas when I come visit my mom? Absolutely bring a picture. Whatever you would normally do when you go and visit your loved one at Spring Mill, it's what we want you to continue to do. Again, there's no visiting hours, there's no, rules or restrictions or so forth. As long as we're keeping everybody safe, we're keeping everybody happy and healthy. If they're on our medication program, maybe they're not able to see a medication anymore, maybe they're not able to open a bottle anymore, maybe they get confused and they're on our med program. Things like that are our responsibility now. That can be taken off of your plate. If you can't, again, like David said, activities of daily living. Maybe one of our residents just can't take their medication, so we're doing that for them. But then maybe their next door neighbor can't take their medications, or maybe they can't shower safely anymore. So we're doing those two things for somebody else. So we can, again, like David said, do as a little or as much. And oftentimes sometimes we'll have couples that live with us. One is completely independent, and they are caring for their spouse. And it just becomes too much. So they'll move in. One's living completely independent, coming and going, driving their car, going out with their girlfriends, whatever that looks like. And we're caring for the spouse while they're gone, to take that burden off the spouse. Because we all know caregiving is a huge, huge undertaking. And you really want to be a spouse, not a caregiver. Let us do the caregiving, and that allows the other person to go back to being that spouse.
We try to be the cruise ship that doesn't float, So, we want folks to come and enjoy, the rest of their lives, with us. We don't want them to be burdened, with some of the struggles that they may be facing. And believe me, that might be a lot easier said than done. But that's our goal, and that's the efforts that we make on a daily basis. The activities of daily living, that we provide services for, the objective and the goal is, well, one, of course, to maintain one's dignity and well-being, but also to encourage your own independence, right? To allow folks to continue on with their normal day, without being completely debilitated because they're not able to care for themselves anymore, right? So we step in, help them, and kind of send them on their way to a program, or if they're going out on the bus, or whatever it may be. So our objective truly is to maintain people's independence, of course, with our assistance. So, it's a slight variation of independence, but, we're helping out and stepping in so that individual can continue to enjoy those things in life that they enjoy. And that's our objective. But, to Janine's point also, it's people's goals, right? And when I do training with my staff, the biggest thing I always tell them to kind of put things in perspective is, one, what our residents pay a month, because it's more than a lot of our mortgages and rent, because we're encompassing a lot. We're encompassing food, we're encompassing utility expense, so we're bundling all that together and just giving you one price, right? Instead of you having all these bills come at you in the mail. So we come up with a very reasonable price that's competitive with our market, and we bundle all those services together and give you one bill. Okay, so it kind of makes the finances easier for a resident if they're still able to manage that. But as far as, what our limitations are, no, we really don't want to put any restrictions on our residents, right? Of course, we have to make sure people are safe, people are getting along, but we do have a limit. So like I said, we are not a skilled nursing. We're not a nursing home. We're an apartment building. That we just help you if you need to get dressed or take a shower here and there. We have an incredible dining program head up by Mike. Mike is our director of culinary services. He heads up all of our chefs in the community and the wait staff. I got to tell you folks, the dining services alone is top notch. I've been in this industry for about 20 years, and I got to tell you, this building probably has some of the best food that I've seen in these communities. But those are the types of services that we're trying to bring to the table, and it's very different. If you look at Mike's presentation, you're not going to find that in a skilled nursing facility, right? You're not going to find that in a nursing home. So with that, yes, we do have our limitations. If a resident does hit a certain point of care needs, there may come a point where we say, unfortunately, we can't care for you at this stage, and we're going to help find placement for them, maybe in a skilled nursing, if that's what they require, or a rehab facility. But we do have our limitations, and that is also set by the state of Pennsylvania, based off what personal care homes can care for. Okay? I know a lot of people, and I emphasize that because a lot of people, have this misconception of what senior living is. They hear the term senior living and they automatically think nursing home. And let me tell you folks, that may have been at one point in our history, but that is not anymore. Senior living has evolved into its own animal, if you will. I mean, there are so many different stages and steps of senior living nowadays that go from 55 and above communities to personal care homes to assisted livings to skilled nursing facilities, rehab facilities, all the way up to hospitals and hospice services. So there are so many different categories now in senior living that we find a lot of people though still group it all as nursing home. And so that honestly is sometimes what we do most, is trying to educate people on what personal care is. So that's why I emphasize that point for you folks.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to come over today. I mean, we wanted to come over to be, good stewards and be good neighbors, because we don't really interact. I feel like it's, we're there and you guys are here. And we kind of wanted to see how maybe we could bridge that gap, and is there anything that we could offer to the neighbors at Coldstream? Is there anything we could do? Even whether it be education, so that what we have. We do have, we have rehab on site. Maybe one of your neighbors here, maybe recently had a fall or had an injury and they need rehab, and we can talk to them about rehabbing. Or you guys are always welcome to come to any of our events. We're going to start up our summer concert series. So we're going to have, each month we're going to have a live concert, and you guys are welcome to come to anything. Please feel free to come to anything that we have.
We'll make an effort if you folks are interested, and we'll give you guys flyers or invites wherever it's appropriate, so that if you are interested, you're more than welcome to join us. But we do have some really good accredited speakers at times. We'll have elder law attorneys, finance people that come in and are just giving good sound advice to folks who are dealing with a different situation maybe that they've dealt with in the past, because a lot of times we're dealing with folks who, widows, widowers, who maybe their spouse dealt with all the finances and now here they are having to deal with it, or their children are having to kind of deal with it. And so a lot of times we'll have these speakers come in to provide that extra resource for those type of individuals who are now in a different situation than what they're used to, or even families.
Are all these programs on your website?
Most of them are. We're actually working on updating our website so that we do reflect that on the website. One thing that we did get on the website is we're hosting a once a month, what we call a support group meeting for families within our building, but also within the broader community that suffer with, Alzheimer's, dementia, folks who have loved ones with Alzheimer's and dementia. And we have support groups monthly to educate and give resources to people to learn how to cope with and how to learn to live with, an individual that might be dealing with dementia. So we do have a wide variety. That is up on the website, but we are working on getting everything up. Sometimes the events can be somewhat sporadic, so we'll quickly make an invite flyer and send it out in the community. If we have enough notice, of course, we'll get it on the website.
We have, we're having a health fair, and I know we got in trouble about our signs, so I don't know. We put up too many signs. That was my fault. But we're having a health fair tomorrow at the community from 10 to 1. So, please feel free to come over. We're doing hand massages, we're doing aromatherapy, we're doing hearing aid checks and cleanings, blood pressure screenings. Oh my gosh, you guys, we're doing balance screenings if anybody wants to do a balance check and see how good your balance is. Because the stronger you are balance-wise, the less likely you are to have a fall. Believe me, I fell a couple years ago, broke my leg in 3 places really bad, and I have horrible balance. So
with that, actually, it's funny you brought that up. So unfortunately, falls are the #1 reason why individuals end up in a senior living type setting. okay? So to Janine's point, we are not a skilled nursing, we are not a rehab facility. However, that being said, we do work with third-party providers that will come into the building to provide those services for an individual who may need it. So the community as a whole is not, but if we have a resident that has a script or an order from their doctor for physical therapy, we'll work with like a Fox Rehab or a Bayada Rehab. They'll come in, do physical therapy with that individual or whoever has the orders. So, you know, to Janine's point, you know, we can offer a lot of services through third party to the residents to give them those resources, or, you know, balance training, or the exercise programs to increase the strength so we reduce those falls. At the end of the day, look folks, things are gonna happen, right? That's just life. We never claim to, hey, you move in, you're never gonna fall again. It's not what we do, right? But I can tell you this, we will significantly reduce the risk or the number of falls that you may have had prior compared to living at home alone. There is solid data and statistics that show a significant decline in resident risk and falls and injuries when they move into a care setting, such as personal care at Springmill. So, you know, there are absolutely benefits. Unfortunately, most folks, which I understand, they're not proactive in making that move, you know, ahead of time. Most folks wait for something to happen, you know, and then when they're coming, they're already coming with rehab services. You know, they're, you know, not truly able to, unfortunately, take advantage of maybe all the amenities. Very few cases we have that they're being proactive, they're still, you know, moving in before anything happens, and in those cases, you honestly find that individual has a longer tenure stay, and they're more active, involved in all the programming throughout the community. So it's funny seeing the difference, but from, you know, the thought process, I get it. You know, you've lived in a home 30, 40 plus years, you're not going to be willing to part from it so easily. So we understand that struggle, but that's kind of what we face and what we work with a lot of times when individuals are coming to tour the community and interested in possibly moving in.
Hey David,
Yes, sir.
could you clarify what I heard in the beginning? You're no longer Power Back, you're no longer this and all, and you are the equivalent of an apartment center. So does that mean you do not deal with outpatient activity?
We don't anymore. So Power Back Rehab was its own entity within the building. It was an agreement that Spring Mill had with Genesis Rehab. Power Back, for those of you who don't know, Power Back and Genesis are one and the same. They rebranded themselves to Power Back. So there was an agreement between Spring Mill and Power Back that they reserved a wing of the building specifically for rehab services. So technically, Spring Mill was still technically all personal care, but within the building, there was a separate entity and a separate license that was Power Back Rehab Skilled Facility. It was a unique model. You don't find many of that, but that has since gone away. And I don't know if you folks see, we changed our sign, so Power Back is no longer affiliated in any way. We still work with Genesis and, like I said, Fox Rehab, and they come in to do individual rehab services for residents, but they
Like
do not.
for residents?
Right, exactly. No outpatient anymore.
Thank you.
Right.
Of course, that begs the question, why did they leave? Lack of business, they get along?
They got bought out by ProMedica.
No.
Yeah, they were bought out by ProMedica. They went into.
Genesis is still around, and they're actually talking about rebranding it back to Power Back. So I think a lot had to do with Genesis as an organization at a whole. I think they weren't necessarily, you know, meeting the numbers they were supposed to or the census numbers they needed to as a company, so they scaled back. You know, it wasn't necessarily that specific location. I guess they looked at all of their locations and saw where they could trim.
If they were smart, they could have advertised more outside, other people would come in, just because you can't have a center there just in that facility.
Right.
So I think, so that's the question on your side, your staff, how you know with staff is?
So staffing is unique. no matter where you go nowadays, I mean, we're no longer competing within our industry as everybody is. I'm now competing with Target and McDonald's, and because everybody's paying the same wages, and you know, I say it, you know, very bluntly, you know, why would you come work for here with all the responsibility when you can go to Target and just stock shelves, right? So, you know, with that being said, you know, I think a lot comes down to our environment and the environment that we create. Myself, Mike, Janine, our managers, you know, I think we have an approach that is very, you know, we're a friendly environment. We are not a hostile environment. We don't want a hostile work environment. We don't want adversity. You know, we want a nice work environment. We want people to at least somewhat enjoy coming to work. And I say somewhat because, you know, work by itself has its own stresses, but, you know, it's sad. We spend more time at work than we do in our own home with our own family at the end of our lives, right? There's a sad statistic out there. And so I think about that often, right? And work-life balance is important to me personally because I have 3 kids, you know, and they're 5 and younger. So, you know, me being present is very important to me. So I like that flexibility, and so therefore I really try hard to give that also to my staff and create an environment where people truly are happy and don't dread coming into work, because we're giving care to human beings. I can't afford my staff to be over it or frustrated or, you know, not performing at their best, because it's not an assembly line. You know, it's not like, oh, that plastic piece, I missed it. No, it's care. It's a human being, right? So the way I look at it is, happy people do better work. It's just how it is. When you enjoy what you're doing, people tend to do it better, right? And if I can apply that with care, then I'm giving the best care around town, and nobody can compete with me.
So you're saying that the turnover rate is less than you might expect because you're trying to keep your employees happy? So you don't
We
have
try to.
have every month getting new people, all that kind of stuff. So
Exactly.
It's tough hard to get the staff, but once they're there, they tend to stay.
It fluctuates, you know. To be honest, you know, I would love to say that we keep everybody for such a long period of time, but you know, we don't. We might go through a period where it's like 3 to 6 months where our staffing is solid, right? But then our industry is so competitive. I may lose 2 care staff because they just opened a new building down the road and they're offering $2 more an hour. So what I try to do to offset that is I offer like a monthly bonus plan to our frontline staff to just give them that extra incentive to create that retention. So it is an ongoing struggle, and I'd like to tell you that, oh yeah, we have no staffing issues, but it's just not the case. You know, nobody does. And look, I call a spade a spade. I'm going to give you the honest answer whether you like it or not. It's a struggle. It's an ongoing struggle. It gets good, and then it gets harder at times. We do work with agency staffing partially. It's always our goal to minimize that. We get some great agency staffing in though. And why we do that is because at the end of the day, I need to ensure that that care is being delivered, right? So no, we don't have any staffing issues from a staff to resident ratio issue, no. As far as are they Spring Mill staff compared to a third-party agency staff, that's kind of where our struggle comes in, because I would prefer not to utilize the agency staffing, the third-party agency staffing. I would prefer just to have all of our own Spring Mill staffing. But in today's market, people realize that I guess there's a lot of other options out there, and especially with, I call it the wage war. Everybody is engaged in this wage war nowadays. It makes it very challenging to get staff and hold on to good staff.
Okay.
I'll
Another
leave
question, could you educate us on the difference between like another nursing home? Like give some examples of what kind of services you wouldn't provide. Like for example, if one of your people would get COVID,
Sure.
they have to move out and have COVID, they
No,
can stay there, okay?
Not at all. So, you know,
to me, if they require intravenous drugs, I can understand that. You know, but can you elaborate that more?
yeah, absolutely. So that's just it. It's a pretty severe situation. So, one, we try to create a certain environment. right? So we have our own policies. So we could technically accept things like a Hoyer lift if a resident was, heavier and needed that extra assistance, but we do not. And that's our choice because we like to create a certain environment and we want to set a limitation because we don't want our environment to turn into a skilled looking setting, right? We want it to remain independent, by nature and appearance. So we set our own limitations, that's first. But then our regulations state, so for example, no, I can't have intravenous, right? I can't have a feeding tube. I can't have life support. I can't have any type of tubes attached if you go down that route. For example, we might have a resident who gets dialysis, right? And they have a port for when they go to dialysis, they access that port. But when they come back to the building, that port is closed and my staff doesn't do anything with that port. It's the same thing as like a catheter, right? A resident can have a catheter. It's not like intravenous, drugs or anything like that. They can have a catheter. My staff is not touching the site of where the catheter is inserted. They may change the bag, but that's it. So we have our limitations as to the service we can provide in that regard. So when it turns more medical, that's kind of where our limitation is. We are not a medical model. We are, like I said, activities of daily living, just helping you with.
Of course, thinking about it too, if you're in a nursing home like that, you've never been anyhow, not getting out of the bed, walking around, going down for dinner, so it doesn't really matter where you are. I mean, it does, if you get the proper care, but I mean, it's not taking advantage of the services that you're here to provide anyhow.
Well, if you're in a nursing home, yes, you could get the similar services. You're going to be paying a lot more. The rates of a nursing home or skilled nursing or rehabs are significantly higher than what we charge. You also factor in that Medicare does pick up a certain percentage when you're in that medical setting. Whereas in our setting, since it's not medical, Medicare and medical insurance doesn't pick it up. The only thing that would pick it up would be long-term care insurance, and not everybody has that. That's something that you really need to start paying into probably in your 50s and 60s, right? Which, if you're still eligible for it, I highly recommend people go get that. But I have seen it, save quality of life. Talk about quality of life, guys. There are significant differences. Spring Mill is considered a luxury senior living, okay? There are senior livings out there that meet the state requirements, the bare minimum state requirements. Let me tell you folks, it can be scary sometimes. And you might question, like, wait, this is the state's minimum requirement? How do they stay open? I mean, I've been in these buildings and it's literally scary at times. But at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind the state, they need places for folks to go, right? They can't put so much limitation or else they have an epidemic of homeless elderly population. So they need places for folks to go. So they have a wide variety of senior livings, right? We are a luxury senior living and premium priced for that. There are different senior livings out there that are medicated, but with that comes a different quality of life. And it's very similar in a skilled nursing setting. You could get all the same services and then some, but your quality of life is going to be significantly different. Chances are you're going to be sharing a room separated by a curtain, right? You'll get an hour of physical therapy where they walk you down the hall, walk you back to your room, and then you don't see them the rest of the day. So it's a lot more impersonal, it's a lot more of a clinical environment. There's a lot we can do in our building, even though it's not under our regulations. So to the point where I said, we're not a rehab facility, but I can have a third-party rehab come in. So there's little workarounds so that a resident doesn't have to move out and go to a rehab facility. If they sustain a serious injury, it's probably beneficial for them to go temporarily and then come back to us. That's pretty common. If a resident falls, hurts himself, they'll go through a rehab and then come back. There's just so many different scenarios that can play out. But I think to your point, yes, you could get both in both places, but it goes to quality of life.
No, I wasn't saying get both in both places. I was saying a rehab center, a nursing home. Why would you can't go down there anyhow, because you're getting infected immediately, your tubes in you, you can't go down and feed yourself. So you wouldn't really avail yourself to those services which you provide anyhow.
I understand, yeah. So at that point, yes, if you're already accepting that type of care, chances are we wouldn't be able to even accept you in as a
Right.
resident. Yeah. But,
My other question is, since you really provide all the services to the people in that building over there, you have a whole community over here. Of course, it's a staffing issue, but, and Helen is good food here. You know, there are times where I almost have to subscribe for a week to have food brought over. Or maybe that I'm going to go somewhere and my wife needs some care, to have somebody in your facility come over and check on them once or twice a day. I'm just saying the possibility for you
Sure.
to intermingle with this community more, provide some of your services, and create more demand for some of your services, so you can have more people. And,
sure.
you know?
So our model, unfortunately, it's not home health. You know, what you're describing is really home health. We work with a lot of those agencies, but, you know, our model is very much in the building care. We just are not set up to provide that service.
It's not set up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing, I mean.
I understand, but it's not like you get in the car driving 5 miles. You get a golf cart, put the stuff in there, come over, somebody, you know.
Sure, no, and I understand, yeah, no, and it's not a bad idea at all, absolutely. The way we're situated right now with the staffing, you know, we staff accordingly to the care that the residents in our building require, right? You know, it's not a bad idea. It would require a little digging and kind of, you know, analysis, I guess, as far as what would be required to provide that service and if that service is even so prevalent in Coldstream Crossing that it's really needed.
I'm just giving you food for thought.
No,
Absolutely,
I like
no,
that.
absolutely,
I like that,
absolutely.
yeah.
I'm just saying there's, you know, a lot that goes into it to try to set that up, but it's not a bad idea at all.
You know, people will ask me, you know, Janine, what's your resident to staff ratio? Everybody wants to know ratio. There's not, because we're staffing based on the hours of care that our residents need, right? So let's say we're just going to keep it simple. We have 10 residents in the community, and they each need 1 hour of care. Well, we need somebody to cover 10 hours of care in the building, right? And let's say one of them gets in the golf cart and goes up to your house. Oh, crud, now we don't have them. These residents are left without, so we're only staffing based on the collective care hour needs.
Right.
So it's hard to have somebody leave, because now we're short-staffed, and the state requires us to staff according to the care hours of the needs of the residents that are living in the community. So we have to be careful
Of
about
course,
that.
that's true, but you can factor that in and saying, okay.
You
we'll
can
see
factor it in.
well,
Like maybe
if you
if
have 3 people that require 4 hours a day out here, that's half a person, and the other half a person could possibly fill the load where it's not really 10, or it's not really 12.
Yeah.
It varies, as you know. Nothing is cut and dry, 10
Yeah.
hours of stuff.
No,
It's a headache.
No,
Which I'm just saying.
it's not a
Oh, well,
headache.
he can't lose any more hair,
Oh.
so, you know.
It's not a headache. It's more of a formula, really. You know, it's a formula of measuring the need with the staffing, right? And that's what you know, to my point of having to do an analysis of what the true need is. And then I would have to look at, you know, the staffing that I would have to put in place for that. And that staffing would have to be separate from my staffing in the building. And, you know, they would have a specific role of basically doing home health for Coldstream Crossing, right? But with that,
To being selfish, I was thinking of myself. I wanted to be a HEMEC teacher. It's the food. You know, it's the food.
All the
Can we come over there, maybe?
sure, if you let us use your pool.
I mean, if we pay.
Yeah, we're working out a
I'm
deal.
sure-
Yeah, we're working out a deal.
Wait, I'm serious.
Next
I'm
time.
serious. I mean, I don't know how much you know over there. Your facility always stole every meal. I mean, it was a possibility of advance notice and coming over there for dinner.
Of course.
I mean, seriously.
I'm serious.
Yes.
Of course.
I have a question,
Yes,
a
Bruce.
little bit off of that. Because you have apartments, say there's a waiting list for apartments, by living here next door, do you get bumped up on the list? I just know, before I moved in, somebody had said before, that used to be an offering, that you would get
Top priority.
given
Yeah.
before, so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, is that still so?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, what I think, and I don't know, like, I think what happened is I think whoever built Spring Mill, they're gone. I mean, Discovery Senior Living owns us now. Discovery Senior Living owns Spring Mill, and I guess they've owned it since, I don't know, 2017 maybe they bought it. So it's completely different now, so I don't know what existed in 2009 when they built it. I don't know.
Well, look, I'll be very honest and candid with you folks. We're part of the community. We pay a pretty significant HOA fee, right? You guys, I would love to do things with you folks, but there has to be a reciprocation, right? There's a give and a take in a relationship. And it always seems like you guys want us to do all this, but there's no reciprocation. So that's all I would ask, because I fight for my residents, right? They're my priority. And I fight for their interaction, their socialization, their care, and everything. So I would happily extend amenities to you folks and give you guys considerations. We would just ask the same, you know? That's
I mean,
all.
I don't know if there's any board members here. No, nobody from the, no,
Okay.
that's okay.
But that's
You
kind
guys
of how I
are
look at it.
Question.
Yeah.
I thought when we purchased into this community that I was told that you were to have a private room if you ended up in the nursing home, which both my husband and I did at different times. And I had a roommate that was not, you wouldn't want to be with that person. So after I was there for 2 weeks, I had a stroke, and at the end of the first week, I went in and I told him, I said, I'm signing myself out of here. And I had to sit down with your whole board, and but you were not, you people were not here then.
Sure.
And they told me that I had to stay. And I said, I live down the street. I'm going to walk out your front door, and I'm going home, but I'm not staying here another day.
So
'cause
you
I'm
were
not
at
resting,
Power
I'm
Back.
not
You
eating,
were at
I
Power
can't
Back.
take the
Power
smell. I was done. I
Okay.
had to go home, and I did.
So-
I paid when I walked out.
Yep, and you have every right to do so. They should have never even told you
They
no.
were trying to make me stay, and I said no. And I went home, and I
Yep.
had very good care.
Good, yeah, so.
And maybe
uh,
that's part of the reason why they're no longer, you know,
Yeah,
in
so
the building.
that
because
was
they
Power
were not.
Back,
That was
yeah.
Power Back, which
No.
we have no.
Yeah, I'm sorry that was your
I was gonna
experience.
say,
That's
the
not-
model, that's why I asked the clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, they were
Question
renting
in the
space
beginning,
in
the
our
model
building,
has changed.
running their own.
Yeah, so I got to admit, when it comes to skilled nursing, you know, they rely a lot on insurance payments. So that
Well, that's
whole,
what it was, Medicare.
Of course it was. They weren't going to get your Medicare.
that whole
payment.
hospitality
Absolutely.
piece, and I call it hospitality, right? And the difference between hospitality and customer service, right? I look at hospitality as the proactive approach, right? And this is what I always try to hit on in our building. You walk into a hotel, your towels are folded, your bed's made, there's mint on your pillow maybe, whatever, everything's clean. That's hospitality. You didn't have to ask for it, it was done already, right? Customer service is when you get the random bill in the mail that you don't know what you're being charged for, and you call the phone number on the bill, and you're like, why are you billing me, right? That's customer service, right? That's kind of how I look at it too. And I think if we can do hospitality very well, then we can reduce the customer service piece being the reactive piece. Both can be done really well, both can be done very poorly, you know, so I always try to focus on that with my training with my staff, right? Because at the end of the day, we are hospitality. I'm sorry that that was your experience because, you know, what my point is, the residents, you have all of your rights and then some. You don't lose any rights when you move in there. You're just moving into an apartment building. You can come and go as you please, you know, I'm not gonna stop you, provided you're safe. We do sometimes have residents that have dementia, and, you know, sometimes they are in a secured area within the building, but sometimes they may make a decision that's not sound or safe and we have to intervene, right? So at the end of the day, we ultimately just have to make sure the residents are safe. But if you're safe to drive your car and leave, by all means go, we're not gonna stop you. All we ask for fire safety purposes is that you sign in, sign out, so if, God forbid, we ever had to evacuate the building, we had a good, accurate accountability. And that's
Now, do
it.
you get your meals, your 3 meals
Yep.
a day? What, well, I know
This is
there's
our
a
guy right
wonderful
here.
chef here, I've heard who talk about you. That's nice to meet you if I ever end up over there. Do you have to go to the meals? I'm not getting dressed at 8 o'clock in the morning to go for
Why don't you talk
breakfast.
to me?
Come on, I mean, I can
No.
make my own breakfast.
Just to speak on that, as you can come and go in and out of the building, you can come and go in the dining room. You don't have to go, you don't have to check in. The staff will make sure, and I have an insurance sheet in front of the dining room. You check who comes and who stayed in the room. That way we get assured who is in the building and where they're at and the location and stuff. So, God forbid, there is an emergency, we know where your location is or where your last location is. But no, if you want to eat in your room, just fill out a menu. Staff will take it. My staff will do it up, and then nursing staff will bring it up to you.
But
So you
is
don't-
there a facility to cook in your apartment?
There's not a stove, there's no stoves, there's a microwave, there's a refrigerator, freezer, there's kitchen sink, and there's cabinets, but there's not a stove, we don't have stoves.
The idea truly is to try to reduce the workload that you would have done in your home. Now, if that's something you want to do, we do have those facilities within the building. So we do have an area that has a stove and an oven and all that stuff. And if you want to, we can absolutely plan for that in that area. But there is no stove tops or ovens within the actual apartments.
Like I've often thought, like if because we do, again, we have residents that are extremely independent. And I've thought, like, and I don't know if this is against any kind of regulations, but like if you had a toaster oven.
So no, you can have a toaster oven, you can have a microwave, provided there's no, so every so often we may run into a situation where somebody puts something in the toaster oven too long, right? Or if they exhibit signs that they're no longer safe operating it, then we may have to pull it out of that apartment. Because at the end of the day, they put everybody at risk, right? That being said, our entire building is fire rated, okay? So from the ceiling, the paint, the walls, the carpet, I mean, it's timed. Yes, everything can catch fire, and don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. But it's rated, meaning it's timed, right? So you could take a flame and put it to the carpet or put it to the wall and hold it there, and it won't catch fire up to a certain time frame, maybe 10 minutes or whatever. So it gives us, you know, a nice buffer to either prevent an emergency or if we have to evacuate or whatever the case may be. Yes?
Is personal care much like assisted living used to be?
Yes, so in every other state, it is assisted living. So I'm actually licensed in New Jersey as well as Pennsylvania. And New Jersey, they don't have personal care. Actually, no other state has personal care. Pennsylvania is unique in that
So that's
sense.
the new term basically for...
Just for Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So it's not new. It's been around for a long time in Pennsylvania. It is a very
Well,
thin
not
line.
about 10 or 12 years ago, because I was dealing with this.
Oh, go
And it
ahead.
was assisted living, and this was up near the Hazelton area.
Okay.
And it was assisted living, and then when you had to go to nursing care was if you couldn't with help get up and you needed a Hoya lift, they didn't have a license for that.
So then they weren't assisted living.
Well, they were assisted living, and oh yes, they were. My daughter.
I'm
has
not
run-
arguing. I'm just talking about.
No, wait
what
a
the
minute.
license
My
is.
daughter has run homes like this. She's a nurse. And my other daughter wanted to buy the Hoya lift, and that wasn't allowed in that facility. That's why I'm questioning.
Okay,
Because I
so,
lived through this.
okay, so my
But we didn't have a
regulation-
word like personal care. It was assisted living.
Sure.
Got
So-
very good care. I'm not saying that.
Sure, absolutely. So, let me kind of start from the beginning. So there is a very thin line between personal care and assisted living in Pennsylvania. And I say in Pennsylvania because personal care doesn't exist in any other state. The honest dividing line is the presence of a nurse, okay? Assisted living can, for the most part, and PC perform all the same services. Assisted living has a state regulation that there must be a nurse on staff. Personal care does not have that regulation. However, we operate above the regulation and we staff nurses anyways, right? So we exceed the regulation. My personal care license, which is technically, I don't know how you want to say it, less capable than what an AL license or a skilled nursing license would be, because a skilled nursing license is capable of caring for more than what I can care for, hence our conversation earlier with feeding tubes, life support, things of that nature, right? So if you look at the scale, you start at, 55 and above, independent living, personal care home, assisted living, long-term care, nursing home, all the way up, right? So assisted living has more expansion than a personal care home. We are allowed to accept Hoyer lifts within our building based off our regulation. Our policy says we don't. So we will reject a Hoyer lift also because our policy, our company policy says we don't
It's
accept
an
it.
internal decision.
But the
we
state allows us to. And I'm 98% sure, you know, that AL is also allowed to because skilled nursing is allowed to. I mean, they use Hoyer lifts all the time. So again, I'm not disputing your point, and it was 10 years ago, so maybe the regulations were different, or,
Well, some of them are.
yeah, absolutely, they change all the time, or maybe it was a company policy and not necessarily a regulation is what I'm
Well,
saying.
now tell me, you're talking about people that live pretty independently, some that need help with Medicare and so forth. Are your rates for these apartments based on the amount of care you need?
So then we break it out. So we have a rental rate for your apartment, for the actual room, there's your rental rate, and then we have additional care services. So if you require care, we have 1 through 6 levels of care. And they range depending on what the needs are. So, you know, if I have someone who only requires assistance with maybe 2 items of their activities of daily living, that would be our first level of care. If I have somebody that required assistance with like 6 of their activities of daily living, that would be one of our
That
higher
makes
levels
sense,
of care. Right.
because I have someone in independent living, and when they needed more, that's what they did too.
Right. Yeah, so medication services, you can provide that service in all the settings. Because I mean, you get a doctor's order, it's not super complicated, right? You read the doctor's order, this medication, this dosage 3 times a day. We just take that over for the resident. So you might be doing that for yourself now. I just have a nurse sit there, read the order, okay, here, it's your time, and they may come to your room, or they may encourage you to come to the medication office to get the medication. We are extremely flexible. We work around the resident. It is the resident's home, we just work there. That's what I tell my staff. And
Now,
that's
during
how we
COVID, are you allowed to go out?
So, yeah, you can always leave. No one will ever restrict you from leaving, okay? If a resident tests positive for COVID, they are to quarantine in their
Well, that
apartment
makes
for 7 days. If we reach a certain number of positive cases, I take necessary precautions. I may shut down the dining room and just do room service. We may put a mask mandate in place for all visitors and staff. Residents are it's always just strongly encouraged. I can never force a resident to do anything. It's not what we do. I can only encourage, right? So I can say, guys, we have so many cases right now, you need to put your masks on. If they say no, that's their choice, it's their home.
They're living in their home.
Yeah. So I can mandate my staff and I can mandate visitors, but I can't mandate anything of my residents with the exception of safety parameters. So COVID, we care for them, we put extra precaution in place, and we just make sure they're comfortable until they recover.
How many rooms do you have over
We
there? How
have
many people can you accommodate?
So we have 79 apartments.
With the accommodation of 98 individuals.
So 98 humans, 79 apartments. Out of the 79, the breakdown is 16 are in the memory care neighborhood and 63 are in personal care. That's the breakdown. So 63 in personal care. And they're studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. Some have balconies, as you can see. And there's about, I think I have like 9 floor plans. So different size studios, different size 1 bedrooms, different size 2 bedrooms.
They're nice, it's nice. It's almost like you go to a ski lodge. I mean, when I first pulled up to the building, that's kind of that was the image
It
I
feels
had.
like you're walking into
Yeah.
it, yeah. There's fireplaces right when you walk in and it's all open wood beams.
It's nice.
Yeah.
I was
Who
like-
else had a question? You guys both did.
I was just going to ask if you knew what the square footage was of some of the apartments.
Yeah, so they range from in the 300s to the largest apartment I have is 1,000 square foot. That's the largest. That is actually, believe it or not, for some reason, I don't know, I have a 1 bedroom that's larger than the 2 bedrooms. I don't know why. I didn't design the place.
I mean, it's
But
a
you-
great space.
But you
get
gotta
balcony.
think about it. This is what I tell people too. When you're moving from your home and you come over to see senior living, you're moving into the community. You now have multiple fireside lounges. You have a library, you have a computer room, you have activities rooms. Your apartment is more like your bedroom. That's what, and like a sitting area. Your bedroom, your sitting area, where you're gonna watch TV, where you're gonna take a nap. But the community at large is your new house. That's your new house. all the spaces, the walking path around the outside, the dining room, this huge dining room. We have a private dining room. If you want to have your family and you want to have a private meal, we have a private dining room. So there's multiple places on the 3 stories that are all common. So it's just, you gotta, I know it's tough, but you have to break that thought process of, this is my house. No, Spring Mill's your house.
It is a nice size apartment. I mean, there's variations, like she said, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 apartments. So it is like a typical apartment, like you would imagine, right? You know, but to her point, you're not limited to just what's in that apartment. The amenities expand beyond.
And you know, if it's the middle of the night, you know, if it's the middle of the night and you wake up and, you know, go outside of your apartment, go walk wherever you want. There's staff, you'll find staff throughout. We have 24/7 nursing. It's just like that comfort of, you know, I don't know. I know myself, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, do I have a fever? I don't know. I'm, you know, whatever.
That's how you feel, you call the nurse.
You call the nurse's station. Like, so it's just that comfort of you're not alone, you're never alone. You always have a nurse, the 24/7 nursing and 24/7 care staff. So I think it's like reassuring for people that may be living alone or, you know, just may, I don't know, I hear people suffer from different things,
No,
sleep
I agree.
apnea, where you
Yeah.
always have somebody there.
No, that's a common thread though too, because a lot of people, like we said, they're leaving their house for 30, 40 years. They might be recent, you know, widower, and their whole life they were always with somebody, their spouse or significant other, and now suddenly, you know, here they are in a completely different situation.
A more pet friendly, if you can care for your pet, or you can hire somebody to care for your pet, please bring your pet. We don't want you to alter your life, we just want you
Mike
to.
does personal dog walking.
No, he does not.
Not only does he have great hair, he dog walks.
He has 6 children at home. I don't think he has time to walk anybody's dog. He has to wrangle 6 children all day. That's what Mike does. Did you have a
It's
question?
not a bad job. My grandson is at
It's pretty
What a
incredible
dog.
what they make, right?
$5 an hour.
It's pretty
To
good.
dog walk?
Yeah,
That's
it's-
awesome. I quit. I'm out.
In
I'm
New
gonna
York,
be a dog
it's
walker.
out of control in New York.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is.
what they make, I'm like, I'm ready to reconsider my career.
It's really expensive.
Yes, sir. What is your
You know,
question?
I have another grandson that actually works in that, and two of them. But the one has this little dog, and he has a deck, he lives in a condominium. But there are these mats that are made like grass.
Yeah.
Oh, they just
Yes.
go to the bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of tiny,
Yeah,
that
it's-
it's enough exercise running around.
For
the
a small
block.
dog, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Was there another question?
If an individual is experiencing a medical emergency, what role does Spring Mill play in assisting that person, calling an ambulance, et cetera? What is the role if I'm having a medical emergency at 2 a.m. in the morning?
We'll do everything. So we will call 911. So with that, it can be tricky. So depending on the resident's needs, right? So we have different scenarios. Some residents may require a frequent room check throughout the night because they have a condition, right? Or if they're capable, we always encourage a resident to push a pendant. So if a resident has the pendant around their neck, it's an internal signal that goes to our care staff. If they're having an emergency, they can push that, express their need or whatever it is. If we need to send them out, we call 911. The nurse gets the transfer paperwork with a list of medications, diagnoses, especially if it's someone who can't communicate. If it is a resident with dementia, we accompany them until a family member can meet them at the hospital, and then we come back to the building. So that way we can communicate the needs, because a lot of times with memory impairment, they're unable to communicate the needs or what's going on. So if there is a lack of communication, we will make sure that that is translated to the EMS and then the doctor. We then also notify the primary care physician, we notify the power of attorney if there is one, or next of kin, whoever it may be. So we will take full responsibility of the whole communication and coordination of care. So that is another big role that we play. No, we are not medical, but we will coordinate a lot of your medical needs for you, whether it be setting up transportation to a doctor. If you have a doctor's appointment or if the doctor gives you a script to come back with, you give our nurses the script. We make sure it goes to the pharmacy delivers the orders, and then we administer to it, right? So we do a lot of coordinating of the medical piece, but not actually administering the medical piece, if that makes sense.
Your whole staff is trained to do all this.
Everybody is licensed and trained. We have monthly trainings. We do monthly fire drills on each shift. We do abuse and neglect trainings. We do fall prevention trainings. We do nutrition trainings. It's everything and anything that may relate to the residents' well-being.
It's mandated, we have to. We have to do monthly trainings, everybody, or they will get, they can't work in the community.
Yeah, and everybody in the building is considered a mandated reporter. So I'm licensed by the state, right? But you don't even necessarily have to be licensed by the state. If you just come to work in a senior living setting, and I know this is the case for any state, you are a mandated reporter. So if there is a situation, God forbid it was something horrible like abuse or neglect or whatever, they must report to the state, they must report to local authority, they must get the necessary treatment to that resident depending on whatever the situation is. If not, there are serious repercussions that we are held to, and especially me with my license on the building. So I am very adamant and diligent about these trainings. And then my style in general, I am not one who just sits in my office. I believe in a very active, hands-on management leadership role because for nothing else, again, back to the whole point that we're dealing with human beings, we have a great staff, guys, but even the best of us, we get tired, we get complacent at times. I like to be a presence just to keep people on their toes. You never know when the director is going to walk around the corner, right? The whole theory or the whole saying, when the teacher's away, the kids will play, unfortunately, sometimes it's accurate, right? And that's why we always have a presence. There's a rotating manager on duty schedule, so every weekend there's always a manager in the building, right? There's always an on-call manager. I am 24/7 on call. My maintenance director is on call. My nursing is on call. So there is constant intervention between management, frontline staff. You are never without that. And if a manager is needed, they're only a phone call away. So that's just kind of how I operate the building. It's a very present, in the moment type of leadership.
How's the occupancy rate?
Our occupancy is great. We're in the 90th percentile. We like to stay that way. We're making money. We're doing good.
I'm jockeying for rooms today. I don't know what's going on, but I've done, June's gonna be crazy. I literally just sold my last 1-bedroom today. No more 1-bedrooms, and I have 1 2-bedroom, and that's it.
We fill up fast.
We're really doing well.
Yeah, we're doing good. I think.
Good for you.
Yeah, it
You know what though? It's the environment. We have a fun, loving environment. I like to say, we create a happy, dysfunctional family, right? It's dysfunction because nothing's ever perfect, right? We're human. We're perfectly imperfect. There's always going to be something for us to fix. There's always going to be fine-tuning.
But, you guys know, there's a senior living community on every corner around here. You can go this way, or you're going to find a senior living community. And the adult children right now are really sharp. They go to all of them. I mean, I tour people, you're the 12th community. I'm like, you went to 12? Are you serious? And what I always say, and they always want to know what makes Spring Mill different. And I always say, it's the team.
I say it's the Tom Cruise hair.
Wow, or it's Tom Cruise over there. You're gonna get, are we the newest? No, we're not. And there's lots of brand new communities. There's beautiful, beautiful, shiny pennies out there.
We have the experience.
We have the experience. We have the team that David and I have known each other for 13 years. When I got to Spring Mill, the executive director had been put in a different role. She took a traveling role, and there was no executive director. So my boss said, "Do you know anybody?" And I've been doing this for 13 years. And executive directors tend to change often. I don't know why. They do. They flip off.
There's a lot of.
I said, "There's one executive director that I would ever recommend for Spring Mill," and I said, "But I don't know if he's looking." It was this guy.
Let me tell you, folks, it's been a long 13 years.
I said the only person that I would endorse.
How long are you here?
So I am here as of September of 2021, so still relatively new. Going on 8 months now.
Yeah, so the old executive director is still working for Discovery, but she's in a different role. And David, I called him and he took the leap of faith and we're working together again. And
Yeah.
I think it's because of this is just Janine's opinion. You know, I think what you get is you get like David Dedenberg and his style and his management style and the people he had selected. You know, I think we have the best of the best in senior living.
It is unfortunate, there is turnover in the industry, and now the pandemic definitely, you know, we always call this industry the recession-proof industry, right? Because we went through so many different market crashes and we just kept pushing forward. Why? We don't outsource the elderly. You know, people don't stop, you know, aging, unfortunately. You know, the need in our country and in just our society with our work-life balance, you know, the need is prevalent, right? And it's there. So throughout all the market crashes, senior living stayed strong. This pandemic, I admit, it kind of brought us to our knees, and specifically because of the staff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of care staff realized suddenly because McDonald's and Target and everybody else was paying such high rates, they don't need to give care to get those high rates. They can go and stock shelves and get that high rate. So that's the challenge.
But I think you did, like, you have done a good job, like, again, David, and put some programs into place, retention programs. Like, how do we keep these guys? How do we keep the good staff? So you put in some, I mean, fine, let's give them some cash back, you know? So every month, if they've come to work and they've done a good job, they're getting bonus every month.
Never in my life have I ever bonused somebody just for meeting the job requirement.
It's
And
you
that's,
guys.
I'm not kidding, guys. Like,
I
that's
forget
what's
these
become
kids
in the
coming off these
workforce now.
days.
If you
It's
show
just-
up on time, you get
You're
your
gonna
bonus.
get, if you show up every day for
It's
30
crazy.
days, we'll give you some extra money.
It's absolutely crazy.
We're always brainstorming and trying to come up with like, we're doing sign-on, but we're doing really
Yeah.
heavy duty
Thousands,
sign-on.
thousands
Of dollars to come work at Spring Mill. What's up? It's rude.
Janine and David, just because it's 5.
Oh gosh, let's talk forever. I'm
No,
sorry.
Anybody who has a personal question
Yes.
or whatever, I'm sure Janine and
Yeah,
David
absolutely.
will answer your
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely.
And thank you, Mike. We're dying to
Yeah,
try
please,
this.
folks, yeah.
And listen, you are welcome. Please do not, I am not a yes, my name is the Director of Sales and Marketing. Come over and say hi. If you have a question or anything, or you know, again, you're looking for rehab, you're looking for hospice services, you're looking for in-home care, come see me. I know I live in Phoenixville. I live right down the street. I'm 5 minutes away. Just come see me. You don't have to take a tour. If you want to take a tour and come see the 2 bedrooms and whatever we have, come over. I'll show you around. Mike will give you lunch. You're always welcome, anytime.
To both of you, yes.
Thank you. No, thank you for having us.
Learn a lot.
I brought I put to leave David and my business card. If you guys think of anything, or again, it doesn't have to be for you. You all have neighbors. I don't know how many apartments are in Cold Street.
142.
So there's 142 people over there. I'm sure somebody might need something, and you can at least say, oh, hospice, Janine will know hospice agencies and rehab agencies and in-home care. I know lots of in-home care companies. So, you know, use us as a resource.
Yeah, we have a lot of resources,
Please.
folks.
I mean,
Seriously.
you know,
Walk right in the door.
that's what we're here for. All right, so